In May of 2013, BBC reported one of the United Nations proposed solutions for world hunger. What was their solution? Eating insects. Yes, grasshoppers, caterpillars, and dung beetles, to mention a few. As a side note, these creepy crawlers do have a higher protein and iron content than beef. But has the global food supply really led to such a dire situation as this? Today I would like to explore with you the topic of ethical eating and what it means for us as a global community as well as individuals. According to the 2011 Journal of Human Security report, 1 billion people in the world go hungry every day, while another 2 billion suffer from malnutrition or live on nutrition-deficient food. As the population is expected to grow from 7 billion today to 9 billion by 2050, this is an issue that certainly deserves our attention. As someone who aspires to be an ethical human being, I consider it my responsibility to consider my place in reducing world hunger as well as caring for the environment. Today I would like to discuss with you some of the pros and cons of ethical eating, as well as some of the ways that we can implement these concepts. Throughout the speech I'll emphasize reducing the consumption of meat, and I would like to hear about what you think about ethical eating as well. Excuse me.
Really, Beth?
Some of the benefits of ethical eating include helping the environment. Did you know that the appetite for beef in the United States is damaging the atmosphere? According to the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, 20% of methane emissions in the U.S. are caused by livestock production. By eliminating or reducing our consumption of meat, we have the potential to reduce the amount of methane emissions in the atmosphere. By becoming an ethical eater, you can play your part in reducing world hunger. As I mentioned to you earlier, over 1 billion people in the world go hungry every day. I believe that this qualifies as a food crisis, but what can we do about this? First of all, I would like to urge each one of you not to waste food. According to the Washington Post, the average American wastes 14 to 25% of all the food that they purchase. Collectively, this amounts to about $165 billion in food waste per year. I would also like to encourage you to consider having a plant or grain-based diet. This is an effective way to reduce the amount that you as one human consume. If everyone reduced the amount of meat they consumed, food could be spread a lot further. Did you know it takes 9 pounds of grain to make 1 pound of beef? Cows eat a lot of grain and Americans eat a lot of cows. But in many developing countries, people struggle to buy even the grains that they need to feed their families. It would appear that the global food crisis is not just an issue of supply, but also an issue of distribution. Ethically sourced food is oftentimes healthier food. By practicing good food ethics, you may be benefiting your health as well. As you may know, with the mass farming that takes place in the United States today, companies look for ways to maximize profit. Unfortunately, sometimes this means taking unethical shortcuts, such as overcrowded facilities and filthy facilities for livestock. Additionally, corn-fed cows are routinely treated with antibiotics because their systems were not meant to digest the corn that they are being fed. This loss of effectiveness in antibiotics poses a great threat to the use of antibiotics in the medical field. By purchasing organic meat or eliminating your consumption of meat, you can avoid these unethical practices and as well as avoid the threats that they pose to your health. There are, however, a few cons that accompany ethical eating. Sometimes ethical eating might mean purchasing cage-free eggs versus your regular eggs, which might be a few dollars more. It might mean that you choose fair trade chocolate, which is certified to be made without the use of child labor, but is more expensive. Oftentimes, the ethical choice will be the costlier choice in the short run. A commitment to ethical eating can also be inconvenient at times. As we know, not all restaurants offer ethical choices. Like any food restrictions, an ethical diet does require planning. Now that I've shared with you some of the pros and cons of ethical eating, I would love to hear what you think about the topic. Do you think ethical eating is worth it? What are some of the ways that you implement these concepts into your eating patterns?
I really enjoy eating steak a lot.
Do you?
Is there a way that I can still eat steak and be an ethical eater? Or, I'm just thinking about what it would mean to give that up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't think you necessarily have to give it up. I think one of my main points in this speech was reducing the amount of consumption because as Americans, we love our meat and it's nothing to be ashamed about, but also it is damaging the atmosphere. I think one great way that you can solve your dilemma is by purchasing organic, ethically sourced meat from cows that are not fed with corn, because that's primarily what is so damaging to the atmosphere. It's what's causing the methane emissions.
Just for farting.
Yeah. So I think organic meat is a really great route to go. Grass-fed cows are an excellent choice for steak.
The
That's a
reason
great question.
for the corn-fed cattle is that the United States government subsidizes the corn growers, and those are like the major companies that are subsidized. They don't economically need the subsidy, but this is going to lead to a water crisis, maybe in our lifetimes, because the large underground reserve of water in what used to be the Dust Bowl, that's been brought up to grow corn, and then the corn ends up a crop that's subsidized.
Oh,
They're
interesting.
depleting this water source, which will be of prime importance. And we already have water issues, but it's going to become a yet greater one.
Interesting. Anybody else? Any?
I think that about does it.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you so much for coming out and listening to my speech and participating. I think we all had some really good viewpoints. I trust that this got us thinking about ethical eating and what it means to us, and I hope that it can help us create some ideas about how to implement fair and sustainable eating patterns within our own lives. Thank you for coming.